What is going on, crew? Welcome to today's video. In today's video, should you compete? Featuring my coach, Mr. Paul Revelia. Let's get into the video. What is going on, crew? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian DaCosta of StredForLife.com. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And while you're at it, subscribe to this guy, because a lot of what I share is what I learned from this guy. And we're lucky to have him in the video today because we're gonna dive on a subject, should you compete? And Paul, being someone who's been a professional bodybuilder for years, hosts shows, coaches hundreds of competitors, very successful competitors, I would love to get your take on the should you compete question, and also just what got you into it, taking your fitness journey to another level of commitment?
Yeah, I think getting into competition is such a different aspect of what we consider fitness that what got me into it and what gets a lot of people into it is first we're looking for an outlet for our kind of competitive juices, and we all find the gym. But the next step is when we start to get kind of a little bit bored in the gym and we need something to push ourselves. So what got me to compete was a couple people that went to my gym that were competitors said, hey man, you're here every day, you're in good shape, you should consider competing. And I had never even thought about it because in my mind it was you either look like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler or you didn't compete. So I decided to go to a show. So that's always the first piece of advice I give a competitor. Go to a show. It really helps set your mind on, oh, that's what the competitors look like. Because we all have these kind of unrealistic thoughts about what competition is. When you go to see a competition, there's moms, brothers, cousins, people that are just trying to lose body fat, there's novices, there's, masters competitors, and then you've got your standouts that are gonna look really, really great. But there's a huge spectrum, and so competition can be for anybody.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, Paul. You brought up some great points of when you get a bit bored in the gym. I really do want to highlight that one because that was true for me.
Yeah.
Always being someone who's been dedicated to sports growing up, I know you were the same way. That transitioned into weight training, but then it gets to that certain point where you're educated enough, you know how it's like, okay, progressive overload, training volume, am I just gonna keep doing this until I'm old and then I kind of wither away? And then that's when competing, at least for me, came in. It's like, hey, this is an exciting opportunity to take my commitment to the next level and just keep it exciting. Have a short-term or mid-term goal hang out there beyond just okay, this year I'll try to gain a pound or two of muscle and then next year I'll try again.
Yeah, I think the tangibility of competing where you go, okay, I'm gonna put myself in a position to look this lean and this muscular. The second you make that decision, I know my training, my diet, all took a big step forward. And I saw some big changes. And so you think you've kind of tapped out your potential until you start getting into the different mindsets. And so things like bodybuilding, even powerlifting, even something like CrossFit where you have these kind of tangible goals that you're going in and working towards, I feel like these are really what help us drive ourselves to that next level, like Olympic athletes, like professional athletes. It's just our way of expressing fitness, but as much as we can.
I love that. So I take a look at my analytics and I'll share this to you guys for your knowledge, and it would probably be no surprise that the majority of my audience is men.
Yeah.
And it's ages, I think the age range is 25 to 35 is my biggest demographic, but then there's also growing younger than that.
Okay.
I think that demographic is maybe they give you 18 to 25. But for those, let's focus on those 18 to 25 year olds. And maybe this will be applicable to the older ones too. Who would you say give a thumbs up to with they ask you, hey, should I compete? What are some of the characteristics, how long they've been training versus someone you'd be like, hey, maybe give it a few more years or
That's a tricky question because I did not compete until I was 32 years old. I was a man. I had been training in the gym for 12, 13 years. And so I had put on a substantial amount of muscle, at least for my physique, so that when I dieted down, I still had something there. But I also kind of think, man, it would have been cool to compete as a teenager because what I learned from competing was something much more than the bodybuilding sport kind of offers on a stage. Was I learned how to be organized, I learned how to set goals and achieve them. So it changed my life in other ways. Now, if you compete at 18 or 19 or 20 and you've only been lifting weights for a couple of years, are you gonna be at your true potential? No, but I do think it may help set you up for a long-term career. You might take another 4 or 5 years off before your next show. So really, the only people that I don't like to tell them to compete are people that are doing it just because, they want the vanity of it. Because you're gonna burn out real quick.
I think for the younger folks especially, yes, while you are younger, it is beneficial to stay in a building phase, a caloric surplus. Just nourish your body well. Don't get nitpicky on the macronutrients. Just sleep well, eat well, hang out with friends. Don't go crazy on alcohol on the weekends, and train hard. So I would say from a pure physiological standpoint, maybe dieting down continuously for shows when you're younger may not be the best, but what you highlight I really love is, hey, what if you just do one show or two shows when you're younger, and that can help like build great habits, and then it sets a proper trajectory for you so you can be more efficient with your time after you've competed, because you're like, okay, you have clear, okay, I need to work on this, and you're back to the drawing board with like a clearer direction.
Yeah, and again, I would not suggest somebody that's young compete with any frequency. So I've seen some people compete really young and then take 5, even 10 years off and come back to the sport. That's something that I think would have been interesting for me. Now, the real difficulty there is when you're young, your priorities are a little bit different. You know, when I was 32, I had a stable job, I owned a home, I wasn't trying to go out drinking every night. I did change my life a little bit, but the idea was when I was in my 20s, my focus was less about myself and more about like my social life and my friends.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have committed to it at that time, so.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I would echo that. I mean, I'm 28, so on the tail end of the 20s, and I definitely was not in a position where it would have been conducive to me at age 23, let's say. So thank you so much, Paul. I think, guys, a big takeaway here is if you are committed, if you're extremely passionate about fitness and you've been in the gym and maybe feeling a bit monotonous, you're proud of the physique that you've built, consider competing. Take a look at natural bodybuilding. Take a look at the OCB. This past weekend, Paul has hosted an amazing show, the Tampa Natural, and other organizations. Guys, like Paul said, it's not the Ronnie Coleman, it's not the Jay Cutler, like big roided out freaks. Like, there are amazing people, just people I've met at the Tampa Natural, like, hey, like I'm a dentist, but I also like to compete because I love how it affects my other aspects of life. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you take a look at it, go to a show like Paul said, and thank you again, Paul, for coaching me.
Keep following this guy. He's going to be doing some big things ahead, so I'm excited to be on the journey with him.
Subscribe, all the things. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. And if you've been around for a while, thank you for giving me your trust and your time. We'll see you in the next video.
I'm no shit, you mistaken.